know many of us are realizing the scope of this coronavirus thing. We just keep hearing more and more. California being shut down, people being stuck in their houses and so forth. And the fact that it's not just over there, it comes down right to our own community. A lot of people around us are wondering, and maybe some of us are wondering, are we in the end times? Some scriptures to jot down for perspective that I won't read, they're longer, but Revelation chapters 8 and 9 deal with the trumpet judgments. You'll see why they're called that when you review those or check them out for the first time, depending on who you are. Also, Revelation chapter 16 shows the bowl judgments. And when you read those, you're going to see that that's not where we are. Those are much more extreme, a third of the earth, a third of the sea, things like that. So, no, we are not in the very end times. But according to God's word, we are in the last days. So yes, we are in the last days. There's many passages that refer to this time that way. Hebrews 1 and 2 is one of them. It says, in the past, God spoke to our forefathers through the prophets at many times and in various ways, but in these last days, since Jesus has come and died and rose again for our sin, in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, and through whom he made the universe. So Jesus has come as he promised, as I said, died for our sin, rose from the dead. We are in the last days awaiting his second coming, his return. And the initial part of that would be for believers, it's called the rapture. But as far as being in the last days now, another passage I'd like to share with you is 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 5. And it describes what we're seeing more than ever, so that we understand we definitely are in the last days. 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 5 reads, but mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, putting pleasure before God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. And then it says have nothing to do with them. So we could list all kinds of illustrations of the things that I just read. And when it says have nothing to do with them, it doesn't mean as believers we don't reach out to them. It means we're not supposed to be with them in their ways and their ways of thinking. Now, if we have confusion about this, we need to understand that it's especially dealing with people who claim to be believers, the have nothing to do with them part, with people that claim to be believers but are living that way stubbornly and not repentantly. We all sin, but some people stubbornly live that way. So just to be clear on that, if you wish to, 1 Corinthians 5, 9 through 13 talks about people that claim to be believers but live that way. And Titus 3, especially verses 10 and 11, talk about who we are to avoid, that say they're Christians, but they purposely live stubbornly in sin. So as Christians, the opposite of that verse, reminds us we don't have to be self-preoccupied. We don't have to be all about pleasure. Life has always been more than that, and we've always known it. But this time does invite us to stop and think and realize, hey, there is more to life. What is stable? The things, the homes, even our loved ones. There has always been more to life. And so we can stop and think, well, what is God's plan for my life now? As I turn to him now, as I trust him now, as I turn to him in this time of life. So we can be seeking to please him, more others oriented, thinking more about others, fighting that selfishness and so forth. We can be grateful for what is. There's always things to be grateful for. As we start thanking God more and more, we begin to see we're really very fortunate. And we can be grateful for what isn't shaky. This just hits so quick. It's like, no, we won't be the same because we see how quick something can change. But God is ever changing in his love. God is never changing in his love. Never ever fails. So for today, we are not in the very end times, but we are in the last days, and it should make us stop and look up and lay our lives before his feet, consider his plans for our lives, and even ask him, Lord, who can I check on? Who can I reach out to?